welcome everybody to this meeting of the ONS Committee on Tuesday, 16th November 2020. Are we live over in the corner? Thank you. Right, so let's go through. So item 1, apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. We've got apologies from Councillors Coulson, Moody, Samuel and Spettigue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm not sure if Councillor Coulson's on Teams, is he?
He's been invited, but not yet, Chair.
Right, okay, thank you. And it's lovely to have you back, albeit for just this meeting, probably.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, item 2, confirmation of minutes from the held on the 5th of October on pages 1 to 6. Does anybody have any questions, queries, points of order? No, I'll propose the minutes then. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you very much. All in favour? That's lovely. Thank you very much indeed, members. Item 3, declarations of interest. We all know the policy. If anything comes up in the meeting that should you become aware of, please let me know as soon as you become aware of it. Anything? No, that's lovely. Right, items requiring urgent attention. I don't think we have any. We do, Mr. Molyneux or Mr. White?
No, Chairman.
Phone's gone off again. I hadn't touched it, but thank you, Councillor Ball. So yes, it's an interesting space on the agenda, and we've never had anybody in it yet, and I'm not sure I want a flood of people. So it's a difficult one because I'd like to see how it would work with what would come to a public forum issue, but I'm not sure I want the floodgates. So if you get somebody that you think it's really an issue that could come here, then maybe it's their opportunity. Right, item 6, public transport in West Devon. We're going to receive a presentation by Councillor Andrea Davies, the councillor for, it's not Ilfracombe, is it? Combe Martin. Yes, up in the north. And Damien Jones, Devon County Council, and Jamie. I can't think of your title, Jamie. You're not on my bit of paper. Right. If you would like to come forward, we've kept spaces for you up the front, so then it's easier to face members. And I know members have questions for you. Well, you did brilliantly last time. I might have to fight over a microphone a bit. Thank you very much for coming, Councillor Davis. I know it's a long drive for you, but we're very grateful that you do take the time out to come and support West Devon. It's much appreciated.
Well, it was a very beautiful drive, and it was only when I got to the end it started raining. So
that's when you arrived in Tavistock, then.
The last time I came, it was a massive deluge, so it was much better. So I'm just going to quickly introduce myself. I'm Councillor Andrea Davis. I'm a Devon County Councillor for Combe Martin Rural, so I'm as far away from you as you could possibly be and still be in Devon. And I am now the Cabinet Member for Climate Change, Environment and Transport. So it's changed slightly since the last time I was with you. And I now do all of public transport, not just the trains. And I also I've kept my role with regard to infrastructure, but we've dropped that from the title because it was all getting a bit too clunky. So with me at the very end, I've got Jamie Hulland, and he is our Transport Strategy and Road Safety Manager. So his job's changed slightly too since the last time we were here. And Damien Jones, who's on my immediate left, and he's Head of Transport Coordination. And he's the chap that makes sure that we have got public transport. And he's going to talk today a bit about the bus service improvement plan, which we've just submitted to the government. But first of all, because we've got so much exciting stuff going on, particularly tomorrow in your area, which we're all very excited about, I'm going to hand over to Jamie.
Here we go. I think I'm there. Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to give updates on what's been happening on the rail side. So as Andrea said, this week's a huge occasion for us all, seeing the railway opening to regular weekday services. That's a fantastic effort, and I think lots of people in the room have been fundamental to keeping that agenda alive and pushing for it. And it's fantastic how rapidly this has come forward from the announcement. It's the first opening of a railway in the country under the Restoring Your Railway Fund. So huge amounts to celebrate. So that's happening this week. Obviously, benefits to Oakhampton are massive. And also, clearly, it also begins delivering half-hour frequency to Crediton as well, on the back of that as well. And obviously, it starts off as a 2-hourly frequency service, but by May next year, it's going to be hourly. So I guess this first 6 months or so is to allow the service to get up and running, see how it beds in, and obviously the service that makes sure that it's all set for when the May timetable changes, and then even more frequency and obviously even more chance for this to be a successful reopening. So that's, I guess everyone's probably heard a lot about it, and obviously Saturday's the big celebration in Oakhampton itself, which should be a great event. Just I guess moving on from that, we obviously had the disappointment of the Levelling Up Fund. We worked closely with West Devon District Council, Borough Council, on a joint submission to get a Parkway station delivered, and yeah, we were disappointed with that, but we keep pushing. We've committed £130,000 to keep going with the design for that station. We still see it as an absolutely really important project, because obviously that will serve the wider West Devon area, the rural towns and villages in the wider catchment, as well as North Cornwall and rural Torridge. So that's still something that we're keen to get going with. Network Rail have already started doing design and survey work out at the Parkway station, so that work has already started to move that on. And I think, from my perspective, that should give us an even stronger submission next time. Obviously, we have a strategic outline business case that is sat ready for future submissions, and I'm sure there will be more funding opportunities that we can bid for, and we'll rebuild ourselves to come back on that. That's unfinished business. So that's where we are with Oakhampton Parkway. I think it's fair to reflect on that. The Levelling Up Fund across the whole county, there were no announcements across Devon on the Levelling Up Fund. So I guess disappointment everywhere. And this is I guess this is an initiative that was looking. They divided the county up into all the districts were prioritised according to need. So even areas like Torridge and Torbay in the southwest, which were categorised as priority 1 areas, as areas most in need, they were unsuccessful with their bids as well. So I guess the other thing to note is that, again, with Sarah Gibson, she has asked me to join her at a feedback session. The government contacted us this week to say, to offer feedback on unsuccessful bids. And I think we are interested to know why on earth we weren't successful, and we will be challenging them and asking for more details. So the first step is register your interest, which I think Sarah's already done, and then we'll be meeting jointly with them to have a session with the department. I think it's Ministry of Levelling Up and Housing now. It's moved on from MHCLG, it's MLUHF or something like that, but difficult to keep track. Anyway, so that's something that we're hoping to happen in the next month, and then we'll know where we are, what more we need to do for the next round. But like I said, in the meantime, probably by spring next year, we will have a much better design that's taken the next step through the design process. So we'll be in a stronger position for that one. So I guess that's it on the Levelling Up Fund bid. The other thing to note, which you can see on the screen, and maybe many of you have already been reading the detail, we did have some success through the Restoring Your Railways Fund, and this is the Ideas Fund. I guess it wasn't a huge amount of money. It's £50,000 we've been given, which is funding that we will match fund about 20,000 to develop the strategic outline business case for Tavistock to we call it Tavistock to Plymouth because we figure that a lot of people in government probably don't know where Bir Alston is, but they've probably heard of Plymouth, and we think that ultimately this is about connecting to Plymouth. And you got the benefits of a city of 200,000 people at the end of it. We felt that tactically it would be a good thing to sell it as Tavistock to Plymouth, and it seems to have worked because I think a lot of the support from government was recognising, we are connecting Tavistock to Bir Alston and on into Plymouth. There's local benefits within Plymouth as well, with increased services through St Budo, the Devon Naval Dockyard. So I think a very strong case we can make for with the money that we've just secured. So I guess it is worth noting it's the first step in the journey to get this progressed. But importantly, once it's got this Ideas Fund money, it means it's now a recognised scheme in the government's pipeline of rail projects. I'm sure you can imagine there are hundreds of aspirations for reopening railways or building new stations, but the important thing is we're now in that short list of schemes, and so we can move it forward with and as you can see, I don't know if anyone's aware of the Clumpton and Wellington stations. They went through exactly the same process. They secured some seed funding through the Ideas Fund, and they've just been given £2.5 million to accelerate the development of those schemes. So I think this is the first step. If we can get the strategic outline business case done, delivered, submitted, we know that a number of the Department of Transport officers are really interested and keen on this project. So our plan is to get this in quickly and then hopefully be in a strong position to draw down more development funding to allow us to get that scheme move forward. And this is something we produced in partnership with Network Rail and GWR. So again, an important thing going for this is we've got GWR and Network Rail fully wrapped around us on this and pushing in the same direction and even developing signalling solutions or thinking about the signalling solutions around Bir Alston so that we don't fall out with Cornwall Council for impacting on the Gunners Lake line. So through them being ahead of the game and thinking about the technical solutions which could potentially trip us up down the line, they think that there's a solution there that allows 2 hourly to Gunners Lake and an hourly service to Tavistock. So some really positive work going on behind the scenes on that. And I think it's also fair to say we've done a lot of design and structural investigations along the whole route for a number of years. So I think although we're at the strategic outline business case stage, there's quite a lot of work that's been done already to investigate some of the design. So again, it's got the potential to leapfrog us ahead of other potential rail lines that are being promoted elsewhere in the country. So I think I'll probably stop there because that's probably quite a lot on the rail stuff. But I don't know if there's anything I've missed or anyone would like to.
Councillor Ball, please.
Thank you, Chair. I know I'm not on the committee, but I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak. Hi guys, nice to see you again. I mean, there's a couple of things I wanted to say, and there's a couple of questions as well. I think what's important to understand, and obviously James just sort of gone through, is that phasal approach is really important, and certainly for Oakhampton, we did. The county through Jacobs did a very high level outline report, which became the feeder for the detail report that GWR submitted into the government, which became the business plan. Which so there's a clear path here, which is really encouraging. And so just to encourage everybody that although this is a start, it's a journey that can be pursued and taken through. So I just want to say that as a bit of encouragement. through you, Chair, just a couple of questions really, probably for Andrea. Planning for the Parkway station is obviously important because that's something that puts a stake in the ground. I'm aware of all the positive things that are going on. Is that excuse the pun, planned in your timeline as the first question? And I think the second question is, the project that has happened and obviously we're about to see fulfilled this week. How are you going to use the lessons learned and the both the good and the things that could have been done better for the Tavistock to Plymouth connection? Because for the whole northern route to be connected, I think all of us recognise that we've got to do that in stages, and it's obvious that the next stage should be Tavistock to Plymouth, and then obviously look to fill in the gap in the middle later. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. So first of all, let's go back to Oakhampton, and hopefully one day I'll be sat here and we'll be talking about the whole line rather than little bits of it. So we will carry on doing the work we've started and getting the business case together. We probably won't be doing too much beyond that because we need to be looking for funding opportunities. And, you never know when they're going to come along. So there will be another phase of the Levelling Up Fund, and we have been told that. And there's the New Stations Fund, which is the money that we're using, some of the money we're using to build Marsh Barton, which is going on at the moment. So you just never know when that's going to come along. And it'll be kept in a warm drawer, and we can pull it out when we need to. But we will keep doing as much as we can at the moment. Working together with GWR Network Rail has been very, very positive. I don't know anywhere else in the country where we've worked together with the local authorities as we have here on getting Oakhampton open. And that's exactly the same team that will be doing, I was going to say Beer Austin to Tavistock, Plymouth to Tavistock. It just shows how you get something ahead. I think what is key, though, we've had a tremendous amount of support from Councillor Sellis on this, and that local support and keeping that little thoughts and flame alive is so important. So obviously we always do continuous learning, and things change. So when I was sat here some years ago, we weren't in the position we are now. We didn't know, I'd come back and say it's this week, and everybody's going to be on the train. We didn't know a lot. We didn't know there was going to be a pandemic. We didn't know how we were going to change our working practices. And we didn't know that today it wouldn't be raining when I came here, which is great. So I think that we've got to continuously learn. We've got to continuously learn from what we've been through. I think that the way that it's gone with the Oakhampton or the Dartmoor line has been tremendous. The speed that it's gone at has been phenomenal. That hasn't happened anywhere else in the country. Nowhere else has the rail industry managed to put aside all their bureaucracy and their processes and all the other millions of things they seem to come up with to actually just get the job done. The very good news is that 50 grand, I'm going to say 50 grand isn't a lot of money. In my world, that's peanuts. That's pocket money. And it doesn't sound like a lot. But as Jamie's already explained, that then puts us on this pathway. So we can expect to see the rest of me coming forward to actually, and that will make a huge difference to this town, an enormous difference to have that station open and be able to get in and out of Plymouth. And remember, it's not just Plymouth, it's the rest of the country and the rest of the world. And that's the message I'll be giving tomorrow about Oakhampton. It's not about getting to Exeter. It's about getting beyond Exeter. It's about being able to get to London, to Birmingham, to Scotland, but equally internationally from that one place. And it's also bringing new visitors in. So it isn't just about us and us getting around Devon, charming though that is, and how much we all enjoy it. It's that wider picture. So lessons learned are always something we do. I've got fantastic officers. Behind these two gentlemen sat next to me, there are an incredible amount of people who are continuously learning from every project we do, whether that happens to be a rail thing or something to do with public transport or whether it's to do with roads. We are continuously learning and our world is continuously changing. Nobody would have ever thought we'd be talking about climate change like we are now. And that is something that's embedded into everything we do. So we're constantly, again, looking at that, and that's part of the learning that we're taking forward. So I hope that answers the question. But I do just formally want to thank Councillor Sellis, because she has been instrumental in keeping this going, and lots of encouragement, which is very helpful.
Right. Does anyone else have any questions? Because I have a couple, so I'll go first. Are we working with Cornwall to support our bids? Is the first one.
Cornwall we have to be very careful with, because obviously they're very sensitive about Gunnerslag. Fortunately, one of the other things that I didn't mention is I'm chairman of Peninsula Transport, which is the strategic transport body, and Cornwall are an equal partner with us in that. So we do work very closely together. Cornwall have been really supportive and helpful. Very happy with the solution, the signalling solution that Jamie's. We won't go into it seriously. The ladies in the room will get very bored. It's a bit dull, but there is a signalling solution, and it's a bit like the internal combustion engine. Who cares as long as it works, is my view. It will work. So Cornwall are happy, but that was key to start off with. But we also work with Cornwall because obviously they know Oakhampton's opening, so we're having conversations with them about onward travel and indeed travel to getting to Oakhampton. And certainly Damien's been involved quite a bit with negotiations with our colleagues in Cornwall over the BSIP, the Bus Service Improvement Plan. And because we don't just stay in one county, do we? We move around. I don't live that far away from the Somerset border. And, Somerset, I go and do things in Somerset that the rest of you are probably doing in Devon, or maybe Cornwall yourselves. People don't live those lives. We don't just say, I'm going to go to a hairdresser, it's hairdressers I go to, in Devon. We will go and find the best hairdresser for us wherever it is. And certainly living so close to the border, I know that some of the healthcare gets delivered in Somerset for some of my residents. So, we don't have neat little packages. We do have to work with our partners. And I honestly would say that I don't think we've ever had such a close relationship with all our neighbours as we have now. We're completely seamless. And I think that's the way forward, that we need to work together. And I even add on to, it's the same working with West Devon and South Hams. So, obviously we work with all our districts. But I've got to say, from my point of view, closest relationship we have is with West Devon and South Hams, and that's been really positive, and I really enjoy that, and I just wish the others would step up a bit, even my own council.
Thank you for that. My other question arose from the start of Jamie's presentation, when you said this is like the first one for a very long time in the country, etc. I don't understand if all of that has been so successful, but we haven't got a railway station, and they decided not to allow one, in essence. It just doesn't make sense. But then you'll tell me that's bureaucracy of the railways.
Well, I think we're edging to what could be a slightly political question. So to save Jamie's blushes, we just don't know. We have no idea. I was on holiday at the time when the news came in. I was bitterly disappointed. There was bids in from every district. We put our own county council bid in. Every bid in Devon didn't get anywhere. Now, it's not going to make you feel any better. I had lots of time to think about this, and of course I'm very familiar with all the bids. Strangely enough, the one I'm least familiar with, because it wasn't one that we had to get involved in, it wasn't a transport bid, was the one from Torridge District Council. Torridge is the only place in Devon that was categorised at level 1. Now, if they didn't get their money, frankly, I don't think the rest of us should be too surprised. And I did only say to Jamie yesterday, I'll be really interested to find out from Torridge District Council what their feedback is. Even though this is nothing to do with the transport, nothing to do with Devon County Council, just getting that feedback, I think, will be really useful. So I think that's, don't think we should feel too bad about it because of that. I think maybe also, who knows what went on, but maybe also, there's 40 plus million just been spent on opening a branch line to a very small community compared to a lot of other communities in the country. It may well be that they thought we can't, again, chuck another few million to a railway station. I don't know, and we don't know, and I haven't spoken to either of the MPs that are involved to find out, but there may well be the opportunity for me to do that this week, because I think that's where we need to go. But I just think, being realistic, if Torridge didn't get theirs and they were the highest category, I'm sort of not that surprised, really.
Councillor Kemp. Hayworth, sorry. Claire's over there.
Thank you. I was just wondering how best we as councillors can help with pitching again to get our travel hub.
I'm so pleased to hear you call it the transport hub. Very happy. It is not a parkway station. So I think the first thing Jamie said is that your officers and Jamie will get the feedback. I think till we get the feedback, we just don't know. I think we need to hear the feedback from all the others that we supported from the other districts who'd had transport ones. I'm seriously concerned about another one that actually wasn't ours, but it puts another project that we're basically the agent for in huge jeopardy. So the feedback will be key. I think from that, Jamie will come and speak to me, and then we look for a way forward, maybe with phase 2, when they open up bids again. But we will be looking out for the New Stations Fund and any other funding that comes along. But because we work so closely with your officers, who I have to say are marvellous, I have not any doubt at all that we will be absolutely fine about putting in other bids, and they will let you know, to make sure that appropriate members are there to do any lobbying that we require when the time comes. So it's been really useful, and up till now, we, quick phone call and can you do something has always been very successful. And look, we are the only place in the country with a Restoring Your Railway opening. We haven't done bad. Jamie, do you want to add anything?
Jamie, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on that. We've been, again, what Andrew was saying about us working closely with the districts. We have been doing a lot of Team Devon work, which Chris has been involved with and coordinated by Kerry Denton, who's our head of economy. And so a lot of those discussions have been around Levelling Up Fund and Community Renewal Fund and taking a Devon approach. So I think there's a forum set up already where we can pull that learning from once we get the feedback from the Levelling Up Fund and actually understand what everyone's experience has been and therefore what the next steps are. And that involves, what do we do about in terms of engaging with MPs, for instance, because again, something we're talking about the relationship we've had with Cornwall, that's really born out of our Peninsula Rail Task Force when we came together as a region because of the Dawlish line collapsing. What came out of that was the development of the northern route, and that was through working collectively with Plymouth, Cornwall, Somerset, and speaking with one voice. So I think those links are there that we can, get our MPs to listen to us as a collective, and I think that feels like a really suitable forum to respond on the back of that Levelling Up Fund disappointment.
Can I just add, Mel was very, very enthusiastic and very supportive to this bid, and I know bitterly disappointed with the result, as were all the MPs across Devon with their bids in their areas. But Mel has been amazing all the way through. Every time I've asked him to do something, he's done it. He's always been available for me to go and do things, and that relationship's really helpful to take things forward. I'd just like to formally say thank you to your MP, who's always been so brilliant at supporting all the rail things that we're trying to achieve.
Councillor Yelland, please.
Thank you. Temporary microphone. Yes, all the work that Rail and all the work that everybody's been put in is to see this as a success. Absolutely brilliant, and to see £40 million of government money coming in, being invested in our wider area is also fantastic. But I do think I just need to kind of maybe just comment on one particular thing that perhaps Councillor Davis has mentioned. Probably didn't kind of think about it. It's coming from a different angle. Is that when particularly you have your feedback meeting, it is really important to, I think, highlight that there's 100,000 people that will have benefited from or stand to benefit from the reinstatement of the line. And with the West Devon Transport Hub location, that's going to really optimise the amount of people that can access that, because Station Road, I know Campton is well known, just simply won't cope with that amount of traffic, and the residents certainly won't. So it is really, really important, which I think, and I do understand that there is complete buy-in across the board actually for the transport hub, being built out, and it is just a question of getting the fundings. But I do think it is important just to acknowledge that. I did want to just pick up a little bit, if I could, a question with regard to County's position with the planning consent for the site. Because in the Levelling Up Fund bid, it did state that you hoping for the planning to be sort of determined in July 21, which was obviously would have been before the decision came forward for the bid. And I'm just wondering, really, it would be really helpful if County could sort that out, because I'm sure it would make some difference. It certainly wouldn't do any harm in any future bid to be able to say that there is planning, which is one step further to showing that it's a shovel-ready project. And ready to go. And I just wondered if County were able to comment on that. Thank you.
I've got two things there. So Jamie will talk about the planning, and after that I'm going to sort of swiftly move on to Damien, because you mentioned about all these people that potentially and hopefully will be using the Dartmoor line, and I think that ties in nicely with our transport coordination service, because it isn't just about people going in their cars, and seriously, we must start discouraging people from doing that, and this is part of it. So I'm going to go to Jamie about the planning, and then I'm straight to Damien, please, if you can talk about public transport.
I think the first point about planning is ideally this piece of work that I talked about is going to happen from now to the spring is going to nail down the design, because we're pretty clear on where that route is, but the process is you have to have explored all your different options before you can actually say this is the right solution, and we're pretty clear on which side of the track the platform goes and what the bridge and lift arrangements will be. But that design needs to be done to set that in stone and make sure that we've got a station that we and Network Rail are happy can be delivered. Once we've got that, that's when we can get onto the planning. But like I said, that there's a bit of technical work that needs to be done first, which is this 130k that we've committed to. But I would imagine the next step after that is to get the planning in. That's how we would go procedurally. So that's what I can say on that.
Okay, thank you. So back in March of this year, the government launched their Bus Back Better National Bus Strategy, which is 84 pages, which we can send you the link if you wanted to have a read of it. And that sort of set out future ways that the bus in particular would recover from the pandemic. Local bus services across the country, obviously like any form of transport, have suffered with the pandemic, and passenger numbers went down in the lowest point to about 10% of normal patronage. In Devon, we're up to about 70 or 80%, so it's the sort of the rate of recovery has been good. But the National Bus Strategy set out how they wanted us to look differently at local bus services, because bus services in Devon carry pre-pandemic about 25 million passengers a year, but it's often the forgotten mode of transport, and what they want to try and do is raise the profile of it, because it is quite an efficient way of trying to get mass transit quite quickly. So what the expectation on us as a transport authority is that we have to form by April next year something called an enhanced partnership. Now that is an enhanced partnership with our local bus companies, which will also include input from stakeholders, which will include yourselves and other councils and other areas of interest that are interested in public transport. And that partnership then is there in place to deliver what we have put forward in a bus service improvement plan. The bus service improvement plan, we had to submit the plan by the 31st of October, and that sets out our vision for how we want to improve public transport going forward. And that went to our Devon County Council Cabinet in October and was approved. And just to give you some idea of the sorts of things we want to include in that, because it is a wish list, if you like, and the National Bus Strategy includes everything that we want to try and improve, so we did the same. So in particular, we want to look at how we can improve rural services and look to see how we can do a different model of delivery. There are experiments at the moment which we want to take part in more sort of demand responsive transport in rural areas, which aren't like the fixed routes that you see. And we want to look at how we can make them sustainable, because where they failed in the past is they're fine as long as pump priming is there, but once that goes, the service tends to go. So we've got some ideas about how we can link demand responsive with ours and the NHS's statutory transport functions. We want to look at how we can improve evenings and Sundays, looking at interurban links, how we can get better connections in towns, and then also look at those strategic links across the county and beyond that aren't on the existing rail and bus network, and how can we connect the two better together. So we've got sort of, for example, the connections from West Devon to North Devon are not particularly good and very slow. We've also want to look at, we're working with Dartmoor National Park around their green transport strategy, because one of the things we think, and it links with the Oakhampton railway line, that one of the ways we can get patronage back is with access to leisure. And when you look around the country, the areas where bus patronage and rail patronage is better is where you've got access to leisure services, which we're really strong on. So we want to try and improve the links with the railway stations, and sort of ahead of that for Oakhampton, which you might have picked up, we've got an improved 118 service from Oakhampton to Tavistock that starts next week to link with the majority of trains to give sort of an integrated link. And we want to move on from that to have integrated ticketing. The government have promised back office systems to be able to work that out about how you pay different bus companies and rail companies their proportion of tickets, because it can get quite complicated. But we want to try and work with that. The other area, couple of areas just to mention that they want us to look at, is how we prioritise public transport, and this is particularly in our urban areas, so that it has the advantage over the private car. So we've got suggestions for some of our major cities and towns about where we can introduce bus priority measures, so that you don't get to the edge of the city and then you're queuing with all the other traffic. There's also the area around the vehicle emissions linking with the climate emergency. We've been doing some work with a national bus manufacturer looking at our routes to see how we can convert those into either electric or hydrogen or other modes of transport. The problem we've got is with a lot of our services, the distances they do, if you can have a cup of tea in Holsworthy for half an hour while the vehicle charges, but at the moment the technology is only there to get the bus so far, and the government aren't keen on hybrid options. So we want to try and work with the manufacturers to see how we can sort of develop the buses themselves. But the base is, if you can still get a Euro 6 diesel bus full of people, it's still better than 75 separate cars travelling. And the other thing we're doing is, particularly with Plymouth, Cornwall and Torbay, recognising the movement that goes between our areas. We're doing quite a lot of work together on all the things I've mentioned, plus the branding, plus the marketing, plus how the stops are good, because you might have a brand new shiny bus, but if you've got to wait for 10 minutes at a bus shelter that isn't in the best of health, it sort of can put you off, and safety is quite a big issue with that. And then on the other side, we're having sort of similar discussions with Dorset and Somerset. But for this area, there's particularly lots of discussions with Cornwall, looking at how we can have joint fare initiatives and those kinds of things. And we've all done our individual plans, but we've presented separately to the Department for Transport that we're happy to work together as a region if they wanted to try anything out. So we submitted that plan on the 31st of October, which basically was for around £34 million a year revenue funding for 3 years, and 10 to 12 million capital funding. And we wait to hear how successful we've been. It's part of a 3 billion pot, but when you add up what everybody around the country's put in, that adds up to about 7 billion. So we're not sure how they're gonna allocate or how they're gonna distribute it yet, but we hopefully will find out from next month onwards, because then it'll be built into the settlement for local government from next year. So at the moment we wait and see. Once we've got an idea of the level funding, we'll be going out to a full public consultation on our proposals, and want suggestions from all those involved and what ideas they've got as well to improve services.
Thank you. That's quite a lot, isn't it?
Thank you, Damien. That was really interesting. When you talk about a bid for 34 million, what does that actually give us? Would that give us 5 bus routes, 20 bus routes, 100 bus routes? What sort of would that give us?
Right, we're here. I was just getting my list out. My officers have gone through every bus route in the county, and what we've done is we've looked at the existing frequencies and said, what would we expect that frequency to be to meet our different criteria? So, for example, the Tavistock to Plymouth service, which is currently every 15 minutes, you'd say that's quite a suitable frequency. But in other areas where you say, like what we've done with the 118, where it was every 2 to 3 hours, we want to get that to every hour. For the rural areas, we want to get something so we've at least got a daily service, 4 times a day. We also want to link that back into how we work with community transport and the voluntary sector as well. But part of what we want to do is encourage more people to use it. So the young and others. So we've got to try and think about how we can sort of engage with them as well. So if we get the golden ticket, as we call it, there should be an improvement for all the services. If we don't get as much, that's where the consultation will be quite important to look at where the priorities are and where the improvements can be made.
Thank you.
Right, that's brilliant. Any questions? Councillor Sellis, please.
Thanks. No, it's just a comment that members will just be reassured that the transport team have absolutely colossal information. They're just. I used to be on transport appeals, and the amount of detail that they know about all the tracks and routes and things like that, I was absolutely amazed. So we're very fortunate that they know forensically all the routes. So having all that wealth of knowledge and inputting gives us really excellent information for when they're pitching all the ventures and what have you. So, and just thank you very much, because as members we need to be reassured with that.
Councillor Hayworth, please.
I'm quite happy to talk about bikes. So there's a bit of a problem about bikes. Our bus companies are not keen on these back bikes on the backs, and the fronts. I don't even know where I've seen them before. I've seen them somewhere. Is it abroad? I've seen them. I know I've seen them. Let Damien do this bit, and then I'll talk about. Sorry. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. The bikes on the front and the back of buses, the buses have to go to be re-certified. Is that the right word? They have to go to be re-licensed, if you like, because of the dimensions of the vehicle and things. One of the things we want to try, and we're working with Jamie's team quite closely on, is mobility hubs and improving that connection, so that if you're looking at one of those key connection points, that we can look at how we can provide facilities such as bike lockers or safe walk and cycling routes to the actual bus stop. So in some areas, they have experimented with converting vehicles to carry bicycles, and we did it a number of years ago across Dartmoor. But it's getting that balance between the shoppers and the pushchairs and the wheelchairs and all those kinds of things. So we just need to get that balance right, depending on the different services.
So as Damien was just talking about the enhanced partnership with because we don't have any buses of our own, obviously contractors do the buses, so it will be down to them. And I do discuss with them about bicycles very regularly, because I do have a fold-up bike myself. And then you also asked about the trains, and GW are very well aware about the pressure on bike spaces. But again, we need to find out how many people are going to be using that service before we start putting any pressure on about bicycles. I mean, I hope it's full of people, and I think that actually the way forward is to have secure bike storage. That is, for me, that's the biggest issue when I'm using public transport with my bike, because I'm not prepared to leave my very expensive bicycle somewhere where, frankly, it's going to get nicked. If you've got any sense, you'd nick it, because they're so easy to get rid of. So I think I know you're talking about the leisure service. I think primarily where we need to think about with our public transport service, actually, we want to get people out their cars. It's actually for you and I, the people. So, if I could have come here today on a bus, I would have been on a bus. I can absolutely assure you. But that's the sort of gap. I know I'm not going to come here every week, so don't expect Damien to suddenly put on a service for me. But that's the sort of thing. It's those everyday journeys. I don't need a bicycle to do that. It's those everyday journeys, and we need to look at secure bike storage. We need to look about, we've got some now, we've got a new park and change anyway in Exeter, but having somewhere to charge your motor car, and that's something else that, we haven't talked about that. There'll be more and more people needing to do that. And using, like we wanted, the transport hub. We need more transport hubs around the county to actually think about how we do that first and last. The rail company always talk about first and last mile. In my world, I talk about the first and last 10 miles because of where I live. And this area isn't dissimilar to where I live. We've got some very rural residents, and we've also got to accept that they're also going to be still driving their diesel 4x4s to get to where they can change their mode of transport. So it's a different way of thinking. I have to admit that my primary purpose is not to get leisure bicycles onto buses. I think I just need to be very honest about that. It's about getting people out of their cars for the journeys they normally do, and thinking about a different way of travel. So sorry to disappoint you, but that's where we are.
Mr. Molyneux.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. That was really interesting, because my question, and I think you've answered it, was, is there a priority for the county? Because you've got the impossible task of trying to please every age group, every type of, be it the leisure person, and I think what you're saying is the priority is about reducing car transport. And I think whatever you do, as long as you are really clear with the public, I think that's really important, because there's need for old people, there's need for young people, but actually, if you make the statement that it's about reducing car mileage and car journeys, then I think that's something that you need to be really clear about, and I think people will support that, but that's what I think you said anyway.
I did say, that's what I did say. I think I just need to also point out that we do have already a lot of residents that don't drive. So they just maybe don't drive, and a lot of young people are choosing not to learn to drive, or they don't have access to a car for whatever reason, their own transport. So obviously those people, we don't want them excluded. It's those people that are always going to be the top priority for whatever reasons they haven't got a car. And the other thing is that I want to be able, and this is a political statement, it's nothing to do with my officers. I want people to be able to have a choice about whether they have a car or not. I have absolutely no choice in that matter. And I'm not, again, being realistic, I'm not expecting any public transport to appear anywhere near my house anytime soon. But actually, the majority of the people in Devon, I would like them to be able to have the choice, and maybe move on from the choice to, we don't need 2 cars in our household, for example, because one of us can get to and from our place of work, education, healthcare, by using that public transport. So it is about reducing the amount of private motor cars on the road, and giving people a choice about their mode of travel. And yes, ultimately, it is about the climate emergency, as well as improving the environment for our residents. So if we think about congestion and think about air pollution as well. So it's, you know, it's a nice virtuous circle, really.
I've got a follow-up question. Sorry for dominating this, members. So at our last meeting, or the one before, we had your colleague, Councillor Hughes, here, and he was talking about, more specifically around the sort of the planning elements of road transport. But he more or less said that that's not my problem, it's either the planners or your problem. And I think for me, it's about Devon County being joined up in that approach and all singing from the same hymn sheet. So that to me would be what I would like.
So at the last cabinet meeting, we did actually approve what our strategic plan would be. So you will see in there that climate emergency is up there. So yes, everything does stem from that. So what we're interested in, what we're about, and what you're about, every local authority about, is the health and well-being of our residents. And everything stems from that. And you know, as long as we keep that at the forefront of our mind, yes, we can have these discussions about the detail, not little, but you know, the things going on. But ultimately, what we're all here about is about health and well-being of our residents, and that's what we're all elected to do, and that's what our officers have signed up by becoming employed by a local authority. That's the reason that they're here as well. So, you know, fantastic teamwork across Devon. I'm sure every local authority wishes that they had the same relationship as we have with our districts, and the districts have with us, and health. You know, it's been fantastic. It's really good.
Councillor Wood.
Hello, great. I love everything you're saying. I think it's really good that you're thinking along those lines. And we've reduced to a one-car household as well, and doing quite well with that. But my point really was, sorry, back to bikes. But you know, like you say, you know, I've got an expensive bike, and I don't want to leave it at a bus station. And the last time I went to the George Park and Ride, which is in Plymouth, I saw they had bike lockers there, and I was like, great, I'll put my bike in a bike locker. But I got there and I couldn't, and it took me about 2 weeks to get an answer as to how to rent a bike locker, for which I would have to give, you know, approximately 7 days notice, you know, and all the rest of it to get one. So I think, you know, that would be a really good thing to think about. You know, if people are riding to bus stops, to these hubs, if you like, where are we going to store our bikes? Because, you know, people do have really expensive bikes now. Electric bikes are, you know, they're more than you'd pay for a small car in some instances. So can we think about storage there, secure storage? And I don't know the answer.
So Jamie will answer that, but just to reassure you, every time my husband uses my car, I remind him that the bike in the boot is worth a lot more than double what his car is. So do not leave it unlocked. Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that really is key. You know, security is really important. That has the biggest influence. So we have been rolling out secure bike lockers, and apparently they're completely vandal-proof. Everything, you couldn't possibly penetrate these things. And so we've got a few of those already dotted around the county, and it's managed by a company called Bikeaway. And so for £60 a year, they will maintain and look after that, and you've got your dedicated secure locker. And we've got those cropping up in a number of places around, mainly around Exeter at the moment. But I guess some of the things that we've been thinking about, for example, the Falcon bus service, which runs from Plymouth to Bristol Airport. There's a number of communities within cycling distance of that core bus route on very good cycle routes. And you think, well, that, you know, it's too far. They can't catch that bus, and it's always the excuse they use. You know, I can't use that bus because it's just that too far away. But it's a direct fast bus service. It's got Wi-Fi. It's an attractive option. So the sorts of thing we said is, well, if we had a selection of these secure lockers at those key nodal points on the network, and there could be examples anywhere, you know, around Tavistock, you know, Plymouth. There's numerous places where these could be applied. So it is something that increasingly we're going to look at, because, as Damien said, Bus Back Better is now more about integration. How does bus integrate with rail? How does it also integrate with our walking and cycling plans? So it's something that we're definitely very keen to see more opportunities for enabling people to access our public transport networks in its broadest sense.
Councillor Pearce and then Councillor Sellis, please.
Mine is a comment, Chairman, if I may. I mean, this is very heartening what we've heard today. And when I think back to where we were 10, 15 years ago, a lot of this was a major dream and a long wish list. And what you've achieved for us is incredible. So, it's fully appreciated. And thank you for what you're doing and also what's coming forward. Unfortunately, Councillor Wood took my question about the bike storage, because I know I have family in London and it's a big concern they have when they come down here, with their bikes, that is having safe storage when they go out. So, it's really heartening to hear what's being proposed. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I was just wondering if the bike lockers, do they have solar panels so that you can electrically charge, or is that something that would be a good idea?
So speaking as an electric bike owner, no, they don't. But frankly, if you need to recharge your battery, I think you're probably not like me. You're going to be, as is termed, a manual, and probably not an electric bike if you're going that many miles. Because, mine would easily do 60 miles on a charge. I honestly don't think that would be something that would be worth that extra investment. And the other thing is about putting solar, anything on anything, is it's a bit more attractive to nick, I understand. I don't know, I hear. Just in case, public meetings, these things get misinterpreted.
Councillor Ball, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to take a slight step back, connecting with talking about the bus back better. You talked obviously about the 118, which is great news. It's going to really help the town and take a bit of pressure off Station Road. What about further afield, the 6 connectivity from Cornwall and working with, obviously, you talked about working with partners, obviously Cornwall. I mean, that actually could give a bit of, take a bit of pressure off the town station initially if we got connectivity there. Where are we up to with that one, please, Damon? Thank you.
We don't know yet what impact the rail service reopening is going to have on the 6 yet, whether when it starts at 2 hourly or goes to hourly, because particularly the 6, the frequency of the 6 is largely dictated by the students who go to Exeter College from the revenue that it generates, and it depends on how many of those transfer to want to travel on the train. The problem with connecting with the 6 is where the station is, and if the hub was developed, you'd have the services just passing the door and they could all connect. Part of the problem we've got at the moment is how we get that balance between the 6 having to go up to the station, and in the time it's done that, the people that want to stay on the 6 to go to points between Oakhampton and Exeter, they could be halfway to those points. So it's getting that balance right. But we've been talking with Cornwall Council. If we're both successful with our bus service improvement plan, that's one of the areas that we want to look at, because we need that for population between Bude and Oakhampton. It's really Bude and Oakhampton. There isn't, apart from Holsworthy, there's not a lot in between. So there isn't enough patronage there to generate something just on the Devon side. So we need to continue those discussions with Cornwall.
Councillor Davies, is that your main bit of the presentation over? Because I've got a question for you.
Yeah, unless you want me to talk about something else.
Yeah, I do. When Councillor Hughes was here, he didn't seem to know about our little dream of our commuter cycling route to Plymouth. Can you update us at all as to where we are?
Well, I can't particularly, because actually he does cycling. Well, I can, because I happened to find out about it, but I'm going to hand it over to Jamie. But I think he needs a little reminder about what his portfolio contains. So I'll let Debo have a little moan about that.
I think she did try on the day, in fairness to her.
Bless her. So I do know what's happening, but I'll let Jamie do it.
Okay, yeah. So I think we said before we committed to getting that link between Yelverton and Rowborough. That's something that we've been doing some feasibility design on. The latest on that, obviously, there is a bit of a challenge with the section through the the old airfield. Sorry, yes, that is right, isn't it? So that's a challenge, and I guess one of the things that's come out through our design iterations is that actually we've already got a route that's 3 of the 6 kilometres that goes from Yelverton to Clearbrook, and that only strays a maximum of about half a kilometre from the A386. Now, if we've invested quite a bit of money in that and taken us halfway down the 386, we think that a positive option would be then to focus on that section from Clearbrook through to Rowborough, because then that focuses our mind. It avoids all of the land issues and the difficulties and the potential time we could spend and effort wasted on that first section from Yelverton to Clearbrook. I guess the other reflection is, yes, it would be good to get it as direct on the 386 as possible, but we have to think about the types of users on this network. How many hardcore commuters are going to cycle from Tavistock to Rowborough? That's about 10 miles. And designing a route to cater for that market is quite slim. Whereas actually, if we can make it attractive for commuters and for people using the leisure route as well, then it makes a much stronger case for the route. You know, as I said, the deviation's fairly minor from the 386, and then we focus on that last bit from Clearbrook to Rowborough. So that's what we're planning. There's still going to be some challenging discussions on that last bit, across that bit of land, but I think it just makes the route a lot more deliverable, and something that I think we can then, you know, focus our efforts on that section and get something delivered a lot more quickly, because we're also aware there's loads. You know, I sit on a meeting with Sir Gary Streeter and Chris and various others. West Devon, Southwest Devon have huge number of aspirations for their leisure trail network and doing more across the whole district. So I think we should, try and be smart about it, focus on something, and try and get that one delivered, completed, and then we can move on to other aspirations in the wider district area. So that's what we're recommending. But it'd be interesting to hear views on that. I know that might not suit everybody, but for us, that feels like a sensible way forward on that scheme.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you. I think that sounds like a great way to go about it, actually, because I used to commute on that line. So did Patrick, I think, didn't you? Did you used to go on that one? Yeah. And my brother often goes on the Drake's Trail to Clearbrook and then up onto the road, and I think a lot of people do that because it does just cut off so much of a journey, just going all the way down to shore and up through Bickley. So yeah, no, I'd be up for that. I think that's a great solution. Thank you very much for thinking of that.
Andrea, thank you so much. Well, you didn't ask Patrick. Come on.
I'm very sorry. I was waiting for the A386 route to be talked about first. Could I ask about, I live in Hatherley Ward, which is one end of the Tarka Trail, and I think your division is at the other end, near Ilfracombe. And I understand there's 2 missing links in the trail between Hatherley and Ilfracombe. So one missing link is in your ward and one's in mine. So I was just wondering if you've got any updates on that, please.
I really don't think any of you are going to be very interested in what's happening in my bit, unless you're very enthusiastic about cycling. Jamie, do you know what's happening down this end?
Yeah, I mean, again, as I said earlier, we've got a lot of aspirations for strategic trails and a fairly limited budget, but we're keen to keep finishing off the gaps. So one of the ones on the east of the county, we've been trying to connect Axminster to Seaton for a long time. We finally got that missing piece of the jigsaw. A couple of years ago, we completed the Ray Valley Trail, which was the Morton Hampstead to Bovey section. So that was a really key bit of the jigsaw. And we're taking the same approach with the Tarka Trail. So we've got those 2 sections to get to, and unfortunately, it does take time. We've had a really positive breakthrough, unfortunately, on the northern section. I say unfortunately, so obviously fantastically, but I mean, I guess what that means is, we have very long, protracted negotiations with landowners, and I think because there was a glimmer of hope on that bit Knoll to Willingcott, from Ilfracombe to Barnstable, we focused our efforts on that. But Meath to Hatherley is still on our list to do, and so we will, that's one we'll come back to, but unfortunately not at the moment. The only thing I wanted to mention, just going back to an early thing, because it's a really important point, is with rail services across the county, what we've seen is they're very well used at certain times of the day, and they're not used so well in the interpeak periods. And I think, we've seen through the pandemic a real recovery on the rail network because of the amount of leisure travel. So I'm thinking about Oakhampton, huge opportunity to try and fill up the trains outside those commuter peaks, if you like. We need to really make the most of that leisure offer and make the trains as well used out of peak as well as in the peak periods. So picking up on a comment that was raised earlier about trains and stuff, clearly we've got the Granite Way right on the doorstep at Oakhampton, and it is a question I've posed to GWR, and it will continue, I'm sure. I've sent them images of the ScotRail trains that have got flexible seating arrangements where they can be converted to cycle storage. And again, if we've got empty seats running during the out of peak, so weekends, for instance, I think there's a real opportunity there to say open to getting bikes on trains, exploring Oakhampton and beyond, and spending their money out there, because I think that was a real big selling point of getting this railway reopened. It's not just focusing on getting people into Exeter for commuting, it's also bringing people out to the moor. We know how much pressure Dartmoor National Park's under from the amount of car traffic, and very few alternatives getting people onto the moor. And what better place to be dropped off? For walking, cycling, doing whatever. So that I just wanted to pick up on that last point. Sorry for extending it. So.
Councillor Ball, very last question from
Chair, you have the patience of a saint. Just picking up the point that Jamie's brought up, actually. I know that GWR are working on a potential through ticketing system of ride and ride. So ride on the train and then ride on a bike that you've paid for the hire of through their ticketing. So that's something that they're looking at as a balance to that, because they do have a challenge, as I'm sure Andrew would confirm, of the number of bikes they can put on a train. So that is something that they're working on at the moment. I know that we've had that as feedback with Oatrail. So hopefully that's helpful, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ball. It certainly is. Right. Thank you, Andrea. I just feel really excited by the work that Jamie and Damien have put forward. I just think it's incredibly exciting, and it really does fulfil a lot of our aspirations around climate change and how to get cars off the road. Better connectivity is what we all need. We have members now who tend to cycle in from their wards, which is really great, and that number is increasing. If Patrick doesn't need all his guff and his suit, he's not too bad, he'll cycle. But we've even had cycling get-togethers as members. So, we're all really looking at it and really looking at it closely. And you are just an inspiration with how you convey your messages, and just a huge thank you to you and your teams, to Councillor Sellis for the input she's had, and I'm sure Councillor Samuels is starting to as well. And to Mr. Brooke, who got a mention. Can't forget dear old Chris. But thank you all so much, and you will be invited again if you would like to come. Thank you so much.
Hopefully
and
outside of a pandemic.
If you can bring Councillor Hughes' brief with you, that'd be useful.
I'm trying not to get extra work. Thank you very much, and thank you for the warm welcome.
That's
thank
all
you.
right. Thank you. We move to item 7, members. I'm not sure if Becca and Claire are quite ready, because we can't see them. Oh, hang on. It almost might be a tea break. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Have we lost them? I'm just going to, right, while you try and find. I was going to say we could have moved to item.
We're all right.
Are you?
Yes.
Oh, there they both are.
They're both on
Hi,
the screen.
ladies. You on? You on? Hello. Hello. Oh. Excuse me. 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 Excuse me.
Can everybody hear us now? I was getting quite an echo there from Councillor Ewings, but can members hear us?
We can hear you. Can you hear?
Okay, thank you. Would you like me to make a start? When you speak, we're getting quite an echo, but I'm happy to present the report if you would like me to go ahead.
Yes. Go for it, Becca.
Becca, can you not hear us now?
Would you like me to go ahead, members?
Yes, please, Becca.
Yes, please, Becca. Yes, please, Becca. Yes, please. Sorry. I'll turn my camera off just in case that's having any impact on it. So apologies for the IT challenges, members. We seem to be having quite a day of it today. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for inviting Claire and I to speak at your committee. First of all, I'd like to welcome Claire to the team of Community Safety. You're used to myself and Louisa Daly presenting. Louisa has moved to pastures new, but we're absolutely delighted to have Claire working with a partnership. And next year we'll do a bit more of a double act, but Claire is still obviously very new to role. So what I propose to do in the next 15 minutes, members, if that's okay with you, is to just walk you through the paper, which hopefully you've had time to read. We come to your Overview and Scrutiny Committee annually, which is the requirement for the last 12 months. So in the report, you'll see that there are a number of outcomes and outputs from our work. We set our priorities each March, and that is based on the Devon Strategic Assessment and also the Police and Crime Plan. And we also make sure that we keep capacity within our work to respond to any emerging risks. We liaise very closely, as you can imagine, with Devon and Cornwall Constabulary, as well as many other agencies within the Community Safety Partnership. And our focus remains to be on addressing areas where the risk of harm is most significant for our communities. This financial year, we've had a grant of £25,000 of Safer Communities funding from the Office of the Police Crime Commissioner. And the key achievements I'm about to just explain to you and go on to explain to you, you will have been funded by those initiatives, and we've sought other funding as well. So I'm just going to pick out a few highlights, if that's okay with you, members. One of those, so I'm just going to talk first of all about our priority on sexual violence, domestic violence and abuse. We have quarterly forums where we have really good attendance from a range of agencies to work collaboratively, looking at the threats around domestic violence and sexual violence. And that produces a plan which is around engagement with different organisations and making sure that we are complying and working with County Council to meet the objectives that we set out around keeping people safe. We've specifically identified in the partnership, and we talked about working on this last year, that there were some specific risks and threats to the older population in relation to domestic abuse. So working with partner agencies, mostly with Splits service in Devon, which is the Commission Service for Domestic Abuse, we produced a later in life toolkit. That's been produced and shared, and the feedback on that has been very positive. Sadly, one of the other things that we have to do is engage in domestic homicide reviews. If a homicide occurs and there is a link to a domestic relationship or situation, then we would undertake a review. I'm pleased to say that there has not been one of those for West Devon over the last 12 months, and I hope that continues. Moving on to exploitation members, we do have a South Devon exploitation network where we have colleagues from the police join colleagues from a number of different agencies where we look at the latest risks and threat from exploitation. So that could be around sexual exploitation, county lines, dangerous drugs networks, modern slavery, and we make sure that everybody's aware of the threat and the risk, and we make sure that all of those partner agencies engage in reporting any concerns. We have very good attendance at that from Adult Social Care. Really pleased with the partnership working with that organisation. I've spoken to members at West Devon before around the Exploitation Prevention Toolkit, which is available on Devon County Council's website, which we've worked on collaboratively, and we continue to promote that. And as a CSP, we were involved in presenting with colleagues across the county on the impact of COVID and the impact that that has had on exploitation risk. We continue to promote the Partnership Information Sharing Form, where different agencies get information directly into Devon and Cornwall Constabulary, which is then triaged out to the necessary agencies. But it, for us, circumvents sitting on 101 for any periods of time. We also have been working quite closely over some concerns around hate crime and the hate agenda that we've seen some expressions from the community. Some of that has been around language that young people have been using in schools, and we've had feedback across the CSP area, similar to nationally, that there's some concern around that language. So I was able to work with policing teams and also counter-terrorism colleagues to put on, at very short notice, a seminar for schools to try and address that, nip that in the bud, if you like. We also hosted a training session around illegal money lending because we were very concerned around the financial situation post the pandemic, that people may be forced into looking at options like money lending. So we wanted to make sure that the staff of the agencies working across the partnership were able to spot the signs and to know how to support somebody and how to report if they're concerned about illegal money lending. In relation to drug and alcohol misuse, we've been working with a number of agencies to increase their awareness, and we've done some targeted interventions in locations where we have concern. We also work closely with Devon and Cornwall Police and a number of different agencies over some blue pills that we were concerned about that were circulating around Devon, that we were concerned about risk of harm. And again, we used our partnership network to raise awareness of the other agencies and to make sure that the police got as much intelligence they could in relation to risk. So we link closely in with your housing teams and other areas of the authority that may have had intelligence. In relation to changes in youth culture, and this is one that we've talked and debated in great detail at West Devon in the past, we've worked very hard in relation to concerns around suicide ideation that, again, we've seen largely as a result of the pandemic and that we wanted to address because it's something we're very concerned of. We also engaged with delegates around some training around gangs, knives, because again, this is something we're concerned. We haven't got high levels of this in Devon and West Devon, nor do we want it. So we have to make sure that we work preventatively because we don't want young people to be fearful and then start carrying weapons. We did work quite closely with a number of different agencies on a pilot project, including a local church and voluntary sector. It was actually within Newton Abbot, around giving young people a safe place to go within the nighttime economy. But that's a model that we can share anywhere across the CSP area if the need arises. I've already mentioned COVID in relation to emerging issues, and that was a big work demand for us as a community safety partnership, making sure that we were looking at any threat, risk and harm that was coming out of COVID, increasing any risks of any members of the community. We provided 100 domestic violence abuse alarms for victims and survivors of domestic abuse. And also you'll see Dartmoor National Park's already been mentioned in your meeting today. We've been working closely with Dartmoor National Park and your officers responsible directly for antisocial behaviour, so Richard and Ian, around working with Dartmoor National Park to support them in being able to address their antisocial behaviour. Members will be aware that a consultation has been ongoing in relation to the bylaws, where we're looking at other antisocial behaviour legislation that can support the park. And we actually have a meeting with the Chief Executive of Dartmoor National Park and Police in the next couple of weeks. Many of you have attended our annual forums in the past, and I'm pleased to say that we had a fantastic attendance on the 9th of December last year, and we are looking at this year's forum at the moment with over 100 delegates from 50 different organisations and really positive feedback. In there, you've got some additional achievements that specifically pertain to West Devon, and At our last meeting, we talked about concerns around increasing antisocial behaviour within West Devon, and you'll see that that's reflected in the spend of the Community Safety Partnership, working in Oakhampton and Tavistock specifically. And again, I'm conscious of time, I won't go into the detail of those, but hopefully we have seen some positive outcomes for those. You've also got some information there in relation to antisocial behaviour. You've seen a 33% increase in the number of referrals to the ASB service in West Devon to the previous years, and that increase in antisocial behaviour is reflected across the area. Antisocial behaviour is still a key priority for the Community Safety Partnership to tackle, and we are working on that very closely across the whole partnership, as well as each council's individual delivery. So members, I also just want to draw your attention to the fact that I mentioned at the beginning of the report, we continually look at dynamic risk on an almost daily basis. We liaise with partners and look at that risk. So there's lots of detail of everyday tasks that we do that isn't in this report, but hopefully members will have found that a useful summary of the work of the Community Safety Partnership over the last 12 months. And obviously I would be really happy to take questions, and I am absolutely desperately hoping that members could hear me. I haven't just been talking to myself for the last 15 minutes.
Can you hear us at all, Becca? That's a no then. No. Right. 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 Right.
I can answer that one. You can all hear me. I have spoken with Councillor Leach, and I will be arranging Tavistock and Oakhampton Matters meetings for hopefully either later this year or hopefully later this year, if not January. And I hope you can hear me. Yeah, we will start them up quarterly again. I think we need to learn sign language. Likewise, I'm really sorry I couldn't be there today. I was planning on being there to meet you all. However, I did come down with allergia and I didn't want to share it.
And if I could, hopefully, I'm not talking over anybody because I don't know if anybody else is talking. Hopefully, you can hear me. I just wanted to say a massive thank you to the continued support from West Devon Borough Council. If you have any questions, please come through either to Claire or myself, and we're always happy to liaise and speak to you. I'm absolutely gutted I'm not there in person, and I'm sorry I haven't given you the presentation in the style that I would hope to give you. So apologies for that, members, but I hope you've heard some of what we've said. Thank you so much for your continued support. Enjoy the rest of your meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Pearce, are you ready to run through this report, please? Wahey.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I am. Before I begin, as you will see within the recommendation, there's been some changes within the team of localities, and I would like to introduce you to all the members to Chris Bell, who is our case management team leader. He took over a couple of months ago, and I've had various online conversations, and I had a meeting with him face-to-face last week. So I think it's important that we can put a face to the voice now if you speak to him online. As you will be aware, the localities team leader brought a report to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee in November 2020, detailing how the localities service had been operating in the previous 12 months and how the service had evolved from initial inception in 2015. In the previous report, the team leader set out future plans on how to further develop the locality service to continue to meet council needs. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee recommended in November 2016 that the locality model should continue to operate pending ongoing monitoring in a 12-monthly report. The localities team acts as a liaison and support service, providing information and support to members, multi-agency partners, residents and officers on a wide range of resident-facing council services. Locality working was a key and innovative part of the council's transformation programme, and the localities team have been in operation for over 6 years. The service continues to evolve, responding to changing priorities, and covers service elements previously covered by a number of departments across the council. The range of services and support delivered by the localities team continues to be well received both within the council and by residents and partners. In the past year, a review of the West Devon locality services carried out by West Devon Task and Finish Group. While there were minimal wholesale changes to the structure, there has been more support and a clear escalation route with the introduction of the senior mobile locality officers. I think that covers quite a lot, actually. I mean, I am aware that there's quite a significant and comprehensive report here into the structure. If you want me to carry on, Chairman, into the background for members.
I am hoping every member has already read it.
Well, that's what I was hoping as well.
Yes. So fundamentally then, Chris, is there anything you would like to add or any points that you think are of significant importance to us that you would like to share, embellish, whatever?
I'll be honest, thank you, Councillor, thank you, Chair. I'll be honest, I don't think there's many points that we need to really establish and really look into on a large scale. I think it's more around just understanding the pressures that these localities officers have been under and the real changing in priorities. So they are really one of the services that diverse and whatever is needed at the time, they just go and do. So it's one of those services that there's a lot of tasks that don't necessarily fall to one department, and localities are generally the one that will just get the job done. So I think it's a really important point.
I have to say, on reading this report, the work that the localities and how diverse it is absolutely incredible. It is far more than we probably imagine. And, you know, if you could convey our thanks, you must have a really good team. And I'm assuming their training is incredible because, you know, there are so many things that they do. I mean, I had no idea they did things for, oh golly, can't think of the word now, enforcement and things like that. You know, I thought our enforcement officers did everything, but clearly not. So thank you very much to your team. Councillor Sellish.
Yes, I was just going to ask, what's your surname, please? Right, oh, sorry, yeah, thanks. Also, I was just wondering if we could have a list of, or an update of who the locality officers are. That would be very useful. And also to say it was an excellent report and really concise. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Did you hear all of that, Mr. Bell, and that you will be able to just send us an email of who's where at the moment within which patch of the borough so we know who are local.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, of course, I can do that. I can provide that information to you, which can be circulated. Councillor Pearce has something similar, which we can certainly look at sending out just to give everybody that extra level of information,
Okay.
of course.
Councillor Pearce.
The concern I have with that is that it's not abused, whereby officers are continually contacted directly by members. You know, we have a system of reporting things to the locality's email address, and when it does come into there, it is siphoned off to whichever person is the one who deals with it. And once you start contacting people directly, it causes. So I can appreciate, Councillor, you needing the list of names. I am not totally in favour of that.
No, I fully support that, and that's absolutely fine.
Oh, God. Press. I think Mr. Molyneux is probably going to back you up here now, Councillor Pearce.
No, I had a completely different point, actually, Chair. So I just wanted to say thank you to all members, to senior leadership team, including their chief executive. There was about 140 people of Cornwall's management on the call, and it was to talk about the localities model that we had. And it was a really interesting debate where I presented what we did, and they asked me how they could then roll out a similar type of model across Cornwall and actually expand into sort of the social care elements that they're responsible as a unitary authority. So it was really well received. They were keen on looking at what we'd done and taking the learning from that to see how they could roll it out. And I just think we should congratulate ourselves for sticking with it and the support that members have given us. So that's all I wanted to say.
It is an incredible team, it really is. I mean, we're very, very fortunate, and when you see the work that's been done in supporting our residents because of the issues with the recycling collections and things that have cropped up there, I feel that our localities team are priceless. They really are, you know, for the wide range of areas they cover and the work they do.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pearce. Councillor Kimber, who's got 3 questions.
3 quick questions about the report. I'm very happy with the service. I think it's wonderful. So the first question is about point 2.2.1, item B on page 43, which says including toilet checks. So I was just wondering which toilets, other than Hatherley, are still council owned, please.
Yep, okay. Right, we have Brentor, and then I think the ones at Yelverton, which, because we have to remember that a number of parishes are actually paying West Devon to maintain them. So they still have to be inspected. But I don't know if it's, you know, whether we're inspecting toilet blocks that are in parishes which are owned by the parishes. I would imagine that we would do the lot, to be honest. It'd have to be, and we would make a charge to those parishes who have got their own toilet, you know, responsibilities.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, there's almost 2 questions there. So we inspect pretty much every toilet that the contractor clean. So there's a contract, there's a specification as to what FCC as a contractor clean on behalf of West Devon. That may be that they've got some separate toilets and facilities that they clean on behalf of boroughs, but what the West Devon Locality Service do is basically monitor that and monitor the output and make sure it's being done to a good standards. They effectively mirror the contract the FCC provide.
The next question is just a minor one. Page 45, 2.3.1. It's probably not, no, it's probably the next page, page 44. It says localities officers attended link meetings, which I guess they didn't. I think it's just a copy-paste error.
I mean, they did when we had links meetings before the pandemic, because obviously the links meetings have been suspended, but we are in discussions about possibly reinstating them.
Okay, thank you. The final question. I think we were told to address all inquiries to the locality's email address. So is that still correct?
I think it's...
Sorry, I haven't finished.
Yeah, as I previously said,
yeah,
I think it should do, because once you start emailing different officers within the localities team, it can cause issues. But I think Mr. Molyneux has a different opinion to me on that one.
No, I don't disagree with you, and I think that's what we should be encouraging. I mean, if you're then engaged with a locality officer on a particular issue, then obviously go to that locality officer. But if it's generic, I'm looking for localities to do something, then through that generic email request until it's assigned to a locality officer to look into the specific issue.
Does anybody else have any questions on this report, please? No? Okay, then. I will propose the recommendation. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you. You can't, Councillor Pearce. You're not on my committee. Councillor Sellis, thank you. He's waving at me. All those in favour, please. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, Councillor Pearce, and I hope you can get to where you need to be.
Thank you, Chairman.
Right, next then, if we move back to page 17, for Councillor Edmonds, if he would like to come forward, because he's now the highlight of the rest of the afternoon almost. Come sit here. Budge your microphone over. Where's he going? Mr. Hawke woken up? Yes. Have you? You sat in your little corner there. Right. Okay, Councillor Edmonds, nearly.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just 1 second. Members, the Council adopted its long-term strategic plan, a plan for West Devon, in September 2021, and along with that, a new performance management framework which sets out how progress on delivering the plan will be monitored. Maximising council resources is the first theme to be monitored, and the thematic update report designed by Neil Hawke, which you'll find at Appendix A, is presented to the ONS committee to give members the opportunity to scrutinise performance against the thematic delivery plans to ensure that progress is being made. It is envisaged that this will be an annual report to ONS and a half-yearly report to the Resources Advisory Group. Monthly progress updates will be provided by each key officer and entered into the Pentana system, which can be accessed online by the lead member, myself, advisory group members, and indeed the whole member population. We're all invested in the achievement of the delivery plans, and the regular flow of information will assist all members in monitoring progress. This format will be used to monitor progress across all 8 of the plan themes, with each theme presenting a report to ONS during the council year. So, turning to the update report at Appendix A, and I'm hoping Neil has probably got it on the screen, maybe not. If not, if we can go to Appendix A, it may help to have that in front of you. Page 21, is it? Yeah. We haven't got it on the screen, so if we can perhaps just look at it on your agenda papers, it may just be helpful. So whilst the plan for West Devon has only recently been adopted, the report highlights the positive progress towards achieving the actions included with the thematic delivery plan for 2021-22. In terms of the layout of the report, you'll see it starts with an introduction from the lead member, followed by a progress update on each of the actions in the resources delivery plan. And it's referenced by a number at the very top of each section. Key risks or issues are highlighted, and the actions to be taken over the next 6 months are also recorded. And then we move into the section entitled, "What difference will this make?" And this is where we set out the benefits to our customers. What does it mean to them? Layman's terms, perhaps, for want of a better expression. Finally, each section is rated green, amber, or red, so that readers of the report can see at a glance the progress made with each section of the plan. You'll be pleased to know that I'm not going to go through the report in detail, but I'm sure, Chair, you will be inviting questions in just a few moments. Each thematic plan area is supported by an advisory group, and all members are involved in one or more of these groups, providing an excellent opportunity to have a say in the achievement of the plan themes. I would encourage all members to attend as many of their respective group meetings as possible to ensure they have a voice in shaping and driving the achievement of the delivery plans.